Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this evening. I hope that you can all hear me okay. My name is Elsie, and I'm the Environmental Sustainability Officer at the City of Canada Bay Council. I'm pleased to welcome you to tonight's webinar covering grants and rebates for solar and home batteries in apartments. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, in particular the Wangal people of the Eora Nation, as the traditional custodians of the land where we live and work. We pay respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend this respect to all Aboriginal people living in or visiting the City of Canada Bay. I would also like to introduce Brent Clark, the Strata energy expert who will be leading the webinar this evening. Brent is the CEO and founder of the organization WAPBlock and has 13 years experience assisting strata committees, local councils and state governments to electrify apartment buildings. Brent also has 20 years experience as a strata committee member, including holding the roles of chairperson and secretary. But before I hand over to you, Brent, I'll just note that we have a designated Q&A at the end of this session, so please pop your questions in the chat and we will come back to them during the Q&A. Also a reminder that the webinar is being recorded and will be distributed to attendees after the session. So with that, I'll hand you over to Brent.
Thanks so much, Elsie, and it's great to be here for understanding grants and rebates for solar and batteries in Strata. So we've got quite an agenda to go through tonight. We have a number of different grants and rebates which are applicable to strata buildings in New South Wales. And we'll be going through each of those and trying to help everyone understand how they fit together and how they can make your job as a sustainability champion or solar champion in your own strata building a little bit easier to try and move your building towards renewable energy. So let's get started. The most impressive grant for a strata building in New South Wales at the current time is called the New South Wales Solar for Apartment Residents Grant, and everyone in the industry has been calling this SOAR. And it's a $25 million grant program, federal money allocated to the New South Wales government, so launched by the Prime Minister in Ashfield in February last year. And what it is 50% co-funding for solar systems only. This doesn't apply to batteries. And if you want to know whether your strata building could be eligible for this, you need to meet some of the criteria, such as your strata building has to have between 3 and 55 lots. You mustn't have had solar installed in the last 10 years. The payback period for the solar system that you're going to get installed needs to be under 10 years. And it needs to share or distribute solar into all the individual apartments in the apartment building or the townhouse complex. It can contribute to the common area or shared power in the building to reduce the costs of your common area electricity bills, but you can't distribute too much of the solar power into that. The majority has to go to the apartments. It needs to be paid for by the owners corporation as one project with one solar installer. It can cover minor waterproofing underneath the solar system, but it doesn't cover like a full scale roof waterproofing of the entire rooftop. It can contribute towards some essential meter board upgrades or smart meter upgrades, which you need to do for solar. It's only for residential strata buildings, not for commercial strata buildings, and also it's not for the older company title buildings. But that's quite a large proportion of the apartment buildings in the Canada Bay Area. It's not available to landlord-owned buildings either. It has to be registered as strata title. And a couple of other things. You can't have this grant distribute too much electricity back into the grid as solar export or solar feed-in. They don't want you oversizing the solar system. They want to keep it at an appropriate level. And to to be eligible to get this grant, you need to get two quotations from two competing solar installers and submit them into the New South Wales government online portal. And any authorised owner who's been authorised by the Strata Committee can represent the owners' corporation. So it doesn't have to be like a Strata Committee member only or a chairperson or a secretary. And that person can be responsible for the two-step online grant application process. Now, it has distributed, to my understanding, less than $9 million of the $25 million that's on offer at the current time. And I think it's probably distributed, there's probably about 200 apartment buildings that are registered into the program so far. And if you're thinking about the time frame for this, it's closing on the 4th of December. And your target to install the solar system is by April 2027. So when I say it's closing on the 4th of December, it can close early if the funds run out, but we don't think at this stage the funds are going to run out early. And there's what you would need to do is by the 4th of December, you'd need to do your stage 1 expression of interest. So there's a hyperlink here, and Elsie will be distributing this pack to everyone at the end, so you'll be able to click through and get further information on that grant. So that's the headline solar grant that's available to residential strata schemes in New South Wales. And we consider this one to be a temporary grant, as in it's not going to roll on and on and on forever and ever. If you look at the New South Wales government, a couple of years ago, they did an EV charging grant for strata buildings, and maybe 125 apartment buildings benefited from that grant, and there's no plans to repeat it. And we think this is the similar sort of grant that it won't be repeated after it closes. So it's a great opportunity. It's very rare that you can find any level of government that's going to pay half of the cost of your solar system. So if you meet these eligibility requirements, we'd strongly recommend you to investigate further and see whether your strata building is interested to join this program. Now, there are already existing solar rebates which apply to all solar systems that get installed in Australia, whether they're for houses or commercial or strata. And this is still in place, and it will continue to be in place until 2030. And it's called the Federal Small Scale Technology Certificate Incentive, or STC incentive. Now, this is a solar incentive that the federal government has been offering since the John Howard era. So it's been around for a very long time. It actually drops down in the value at the end of each calendar year. So there's always an incentive to apply in this calendar year because the amount that you get will be a little bit more than it will be, on the 1st of January in 2027, and it drops down each year. Now, the good thing about this is it's just baked into the entire solar ecosystem in Australia, and you don't need to fill out extra paperwork to get it. So before we were talking about the New South Wales Solar for Apartment Residents grant, or SOAR, that's got a lot of paperwork attached to it. This federal STC incentive It's managed by your solar installer. So any solar installer that's accredited with Solar Accreditation Australia or SAA offers this, and they offer it net in the upfront quote that you get. So it's actually not a rebate. Um, uh, it's an incentive, and it's deducted into the in the quote at the time of quoting. So you never actually pay the money out and then have to go and collect it from the government. It's just a deduction that's quoted net on the solar installer's quote. So, yeah, this is still there. If you're applying for the New South Wales Solar for Apartment Residents rebate of 50%, um, you you take the cost of the solar system net with the federal incentive already taken off, and then you apply the 50% rebate to what's left. That's the way these two work together. If you're an apartment building that's applying for the New South Wales SOAR rebate. Now, let's move on and we'll talk about batteries. So, 1st of July last year, the federal government introduced the Cheaper Home Batteries program. And um, my understanding is now I've got 430,000 batteries installed, but I think I saw the latest number and it's broken 500,000 home batteries have been installed since the 1st of July last year. And this is a phenomenal program. In fact, globally, there's no other program like this that's incentivizing the rollout of batteries at such a fast speed. It's a world leading battery incentive program. Now, this federal cheaper home batteries, if you remember, we first talked about the New South Wales Solar for Apartment Residents rebate. It only applies to solar. And then we talked about the federal STC incentive on the solar panels. Now we're talking about the federal STC incentive on batteries. Now, the batteries, there are a few conditions that you need to meet if you're going to get this federal cheaper home batteries rebate. And keep in mind, if you're thinking about doing solar and batteries for your apartment building, you might break it into two different projects. You might do the solar project and go out and get the SOAR rebate this year, and then you might add the batteries later on, like next year or the year after, and take advantage of the cheaper home batteries rebate. So there's no pressure on you to do batteries at the same time as the solar from a perspective of optimizing all the grants and rebates that are available. This is a very big program. Like from memory, this is like a $7 billion program, so much bigger than the New South Wales Solar for Apartment Residents rebate of 25 million. And but what are some of the eligibility criteria that you've got to meet here? So your battery has to be between 5 kilowatt hours and 100 kilowatt hours maximum. But this incentive only applies to the first 50 kilowatt hours of a battery. So if you install a 60 kilowatt hour battery, there's no federal STC incentive on the last 10 kilowatt hours of battery. This rebate is again quoted net by your solar installer on the upfront price that you're quoted in the battery quote. When it first came in, it was a little bit higher last year, and then it's dropped down, and it'll keep dropping down in each consecutive year, the amount that you get per usable kilowatt hours. But also on the 1st of May 2026, because this grant program was so popular, the federal government actually ratcheted back the rebate as the battery gets larger. So, on just say you're installing a 50 kilowatt hour battery, the rebate that you get on the 14 to 28 kilowatt hours range of the battery is dropped down from what you get on the first 0 to 14 kilowatt hours, and then it drops down again between 29 and 50 kilowatt hours. So the amount you get for each section of the battery. So what that was, the purpose of that was to actually stop standalone homeowners installing batteries that were too big for their home. So I've got some friends that are in the industry, and they had tiny solar systems on their standalone homes, and then they went out and purchased 50 kilowatt hour batteries to maximize this federal SDC battery rebate. And so, but what the federal government did on the 1st of May was they introduced some ratchets to lower the amount of rebate that you get as you make the battery bigger, and that's to stop standalone homeowners abusing the rebate and installing batteries that are too big. Now, this battery, to get the federal SDC incentive, the battery also needs to be it needs to be installed alongside a solar system. You can't just install a battery on its own and get the incentive. It's got to be on the Clean Energy Council approved product list, and it has to be virtual power plant capable. But if, for example, you're doing a solar sharing system in an apartment building, at the current time, you can't actually use a virtual power plant program in conjunction with the solar sharing system. So we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about this later on. But let's just jump over. We've gone through a few walls of text, so let's just have a look at a real life installation here in Breakfast Point. And this is inside a Strata building in the Breakfast Point Community Association. And you can see here that there are two solar sharing systems called the Sol Shares from Illume Energy. And over here, we've got two shared batteries. One shared battery for each of the solar sharing systems, and each of these solar sharing systems can connect up to 15 apartments inside and make it all fair and equitable. Now, one thing that we will point out, if you want to do this type of solar sharing arrangement using the Illume Energy Sol Share, it puts further constraints on the type of battery that you need to install alongside it, and you need to install DC coupled batteries. And so common brands of DC coupled batteries are these ones here are from a company called Sungrow. Saigon Energy is another one, and another brand is Goodwee. They're examples of DC coupled batteries that can be used with solar sharing systems. If you're doing this solar sharing system for an apartment building, you can't use an AC coupled battery such as a Tesla Powerwall. That won't work correctly. So even though the AC batteries are eligible for the federal cheaper home batteries rebate, if you're setting up this type of system in a Strata building, you need to use DC coupled batteries. So let's just have a look. There, some of the headline battery rebates and incentives which are available. Let's just go back to this New South Wales SOAR, Solar for Apartment Residents rebate that we opened with. And let's just look at a couple of different models of how you can make use of this rebate. Now, if you're a small strata building, maybe you've got 5 units, or you're maybe a townhouse strata with separate roofs for each townhouse, then you might want to get one solar installer to quote multiple individual solar systems that connect to each individual lot meter within your apartment building, and get all of those solar systems installed by the same solar installer at the same time as an owners corporation funded project. And then that would be eligible for the New South Wales SOAR rebate of 50%. So, for example, if you're a 3, 4, 5 lot strata, uh, or you're a townhouse that might have, um, 6 or 8 townhouses, particularly if you've got separate roofs, this would be the best model to do individual solar systems for connected to each individual lot meter. Now, um, we've run into this issue a few times in townhouse complexes. This is a townhouse complex, and you can see there are 2 individual solar systems um, that have been installed within the last 10 years. Now, if there are 2 individual solar systems already installed, you can't uninstall those systems that were installed in the last 10 years and then go and get the government rebate 50% off to install one for all the townhouses in the block. But you can, if you've already got 2 townhouses that have individual solar systems, you can do a New South Wales SOAR application and just say there's another 6 townhouses, get one solar installer to quote on installing 6 individual solar systems for the remaining townhouses, and then get a 50% rebate from the New South Wales government on that configuration. Now, when this New South Wales SOAR program first opened up, um, it was only available to what are called Class 2 apartment buildings. What we're looking at here is actually a Class 1A set of townhouses. And the way to try and pick what a Class 1A townhouse is that it doesn't have an underground basement car park or some sort of common slab that all the townhouses are built on. It's just at ground level. Now, originally, when the New South Wales SOAR program came out, this style of townhouse wasn't eligible for the New South Wales SOAR rebate, and now they've extended it to make this type of Class 1A townhouse setup eligible. So you can get the 50% rebate now on this. Now, the second method to go for the New South Wales SOAR rebate is to install a single solar system on the rooftop and use a solar sharing gateway. And the most famous of these is the Loom Energy Soul Share system. And what it does is it manages distribution of the solar power into all the individual lot meters, and you can also connect up the common area meter if there are enough free phases. And so that's the most common way to install solar and go for the New South Wales SOAR rebate. So the Loom Energy Soul Share, it was developed in Melbourne over the last 10 years. It's now exported to the US, UK, and Europe. And the last number I saw is that there are 12,000 apartments worldwide that are connected up to shared solar systems using the Loom Energy Soul Share. There is one other technology also from Melbourne called the Zico Energy Marshall solar sharing system. We understand it's been installed into Victoria, but we're not aware of any installs in New South Wales at the current time. But we have heard that they're going to enter into the Newcastle and the Illawarra areas first before they come to Sydney in New South Wales. So this is a case study of this building in Breakfast Point, and you can see the solar system on the rooftop of this strata building on these 2 rooftops. And that's a shared solar system sharing solar power into 21 lots inside that strata building. Now, we'll just go through a few useful tips for doing your New South Wales SOAR application. The first thing that you might want to do is, if you want to do solar in an apartment building, regardless of whether it's individual solar or shared solar, and go for the SOAR rebate, you need to have smart meters for every single apartment or townhouse inside your strata building or your strata scheme. So, um, what we would recommend is if you're thinking about applying for this New South Wales SOAR rebate, why don't you send a message to every um, apartment owner or tenant in the building and ask them if they can reach out to their existing energy retailer and get a free smart meter install scheduled in the next couple of months. Why that's a good thing to do is because if you leave the smart meter upgrade until the last minute before the solar gets installed and it's done at the same time as the solar installation, then the owners corporation will end up paying up to $330, maybe even $360 per apartment to upgrade that to a smart meter. Now, if those individual lot owners or residents had contacted their energy retailer and gotten a smart meter upgrade for free earlier, every time one person does that, it saves the owners corporation some money to update the residual set of old electricity meters at the time of the solar install. Um, you can look up online if you're trying to do research for which solar installers to get quotes from. You can use an online installer list like the one we've got listed here that doesn't have any commissions or kickbacks built into it. Definitely ask your solar installer if they've quoted for the New South Wales SOAR program before, because it's actually quite difficult for them to quote in the right format that it's acceptable by the government. And the New South Wales government provides an Excel spreadsheet that you can download off their website. And you should send that to the solar installer and ask them to put all the line items from their quote into the correct categories in that spreadsheet so that the New South Wales government can tick the box and say yes and approve the grant. Now, there's a lot of demand. We've just talked about all these solar and battery rebates that are available at the current time. You might actually have to approach 4 solar installers or maybe even 6 solar installers to get 2 quotes, because some will just throw up their hands and say, we're too busy. We've got too many jobs on at the moment. You can hire an independent consultant to do a solar quote comparison if you go and get your quotes and your owners corporation wants like a solar engineer to review the quote and provide a report. The thing that we suggest is that you wait until you get a funding deed from the New South Wales government before engaging a structural engineer to do, say, a weight loading assessment of a tiled roof. Anytime a solar system is installed on any rooftop, it's mandatory that the solar installer arranges a structural engineer to do a wind speed sign-off. And that, when the structural engineer does that, they look at the fastest winds in that particular locality and sign off that, you know, the way that the solar panels are affixed to the roof, they won't fly off in the heaviest wind gusts. But that mandatory wind speed sign off by the structural engineer doesn't include a weight loading analysis, which is your roof structurally, does your roof have the structural integrity to be able to hold the weight of a solar system? That's an optional extra that you might want to commission. But if you're going to take to do one of those reports, wait until you get the funding deed from the New South Wales government, and then you're basically on the home stretch before you install the solar. Then call in the structural engineer and pay them if you want to do a weight loading assessment, say on an old tile roof which has wooden cross beams from the 1960s. Typically, people that are doing installs on concrete roofs don't get the weight loading assessment done. So, Elsie's going to send out this presentation later, but here's like a high level set of steps that you can follow through if you're attempting to go for the New South Wales SOAR rebate. One thing that we haven't mentioned before is that The rebate is actually paid to you in three different installments by the New South Wales government. I've just heard that the New South Wales government's really improved their speed of making these rebate payments. But if you're trying to gauge your cash flow that you need to be able to get through the project, remember typically you'll be asking a solar installer, you'll be paying an installer in three installments, maybe 10% on contract signing, 40% on delivery of materials to site, and 50% on completion. So typically you'll pay the solar installer three times in three separate installments. And if you're going for the New South Wales SOAR rebate, you'll also be making three separate rebate requests to get the full amount of your 50% rebate back from the New South Wales government. So what are some of the challenges that people have come across? Shading, obviously, that can be from trees, it can be from other strata buildings or future strata buildings that are going to go up alongside your building. Home building warranty insurance. So in New South Wales, any project um, that's done in a strata building that's over $20,000 in value, you need to take out the home building warranty insurance. Just to let you know that the New South Wales SOAR rebate doesn't cover, they don't pay 50% of your insurance. So you'll be covering that at your own cost. And for that reason, typically the overall rebate that you get from the New South Wales government is about 43% rather than 50%, which is their headline amount, because they don't pay 50% towards this insurance. If you've got embedded networks, you know about embedded networks and you know you'll have extra challenges. If you've got a mixed use strata building where you've got like shops on the ground floor and then residential apartments above, you're not allowed to connect up the commercial lots on the ground floor. So people have tried different angles to get around this with the New South Wales government. The best thing is to don't make the New South Wales government do any extra thinking. If you've got 20 lots and four shops at the bottom, only put forward a proposal to the New South Wales government for connecting up 20 apartments. And that will be a little bit unfair to the four shop owners at the start. Wait till the system's installed and then pay more money to the solar installer to come back and connect up the shops if you need to do that, or work out some other way to compensate the shop owners that they're not going to be connected to the solar. Don't try and mix the commercial lots in with the residential lots above. Financing can be a challenge. We do know of a couple of stratas that have used, say, Lanark Strata Finance or Smart Ease energy asset financing to pay the other 50%. We mentioned the weight loading assessment, and some stratas have found out that their waterproofing membrane is so bad that they have to do a huge waterproofing remediation project, and some people have put the whole solar project on hold and are not proceeding because that's a higher priority project for them to do before they install solar panels. We mentioned earlier, this is the sample SOAR quote template that you can download off the New South Wales Government Grants website, and it's got all the categories: eligible items, eligible enabling works and summary, and ineligible items. And batteries, for example, are ineligible for the SOAR grant, but you need to get the solar installer to fill out this template as well as doing their normal quote if you're going for the SOAR grant. Now, we spoke earlier about a couple of battery, like a federal cheaper home batteries rebate. We're excited to announce that from the 1st of September, which is not too far away, there's going to be a new program from the New South Wales government that will incentivize batteries being installed into apartment buildings, which can be stacked on top of the federal cheaper home batteries incentive. And now, to be eligible for this when it comes in I don't think that the solar installers will be ready to offer this from the 1st of September, but hopefully shortly after, once all the paperwork's cleared up. To be eligible for this, which is called a peak demand reduction scheme battery rebate from the New South Wales government, you need to have an apartment building with at least 4 dwellings. You can't have any batteries on site. Um, this applies to batteries that are between 20 kilowatt hours and 200 kilowatt hours. But if you remember the federal cheaper home batteries, it only goes up to batteries that are 50 kilowatt hours. So most of the time, you'll be installing batteries. If you want to double dip on both of these battery rebates, you'll be installing batteries which are between 20 and 50 kilowatt hours. Um, Again, it's got to be installed by an SAA accredited installer. You may need to get planning approval if your battery is over 20 kilowatt hours, a complying development certificate done by an independent certifier and submitted to your local council. Um, and yeah, a few more criteria to be eligible for this. There is one major criteria which has caused a bit of consternation, and that is if you're going to do the apply for this new battery rebate from the New South Wales government that comes in from the 1st of September, then the battery's got to be installed outside the strata building. So this picture of a battery that's inside a car park in a Drummoyne strata wouldn't be eligible for this new battery rebate, even though the federal cheap home batteries rebate you can install inside the apartment building and be eligible for that. So I guess the question everyone's going to be asking is the cost of the cable run to get from the main switch room to outside the building and finding a location outside the building that everyone's happy with and putting a little concrete plinth out there. Is that going to make it worthwhile going for this New South Wales battery rebate or not? Um, and there's a little calculator that you can click through to have a look at that. But this rebate is also supercharged if there's no solar installed at the start and you install solar at the same time as installing the batteries. So you get a bigger rebate if you install solar at the same time. We were just talking about approvals that you might need for different sizes of batteries. So batteries that are under 20 kilowatt hours, no approval needed from local council. Between 20 and 100, you need the complying development certificate, so you hire an independent certifier. We've heard people being charged $1,400 to $1,600 for that independent certifier. And if you're doing 100 to 200 kilowatt hours of batteries, that's quite big, so you need to lodge a development application with your local council. Where this approvals gets messy is in a townhouse complex where people start installing individual solar and batteries for each townhouse. And what we think you might have to be wary of from a strata scheme perspective is just say you had 5 townhouses install a 20 kilowatt hour battery. That gets you to the 100 kilowatt hour limit at your site. And then if a sixth townhouse wanted to install an individual 20 kilowatt hour battery, that might trigger them needing to apply for a DA from the local council. How do we do financing for strata? So I mentioned earlier, sorry, I'll just go back to that slide. Okay, hopefully that's visible again. So we mentioned earlier, you can go in and take out a strata loan and pair that with the New South Wales soil rebate. We've seen a strata also use energy finance. And last week we heard about Spritz Energy coming up from Melbourne, which has another innovative model for reducing the cost of installing solar. I won't go into that in detail, but you can get vendor finance from some solar installers as well. So Um, we've made it to the end of the formal part of the presentation. We've got a few extra resources here that you can click through. We've got an online solar readiness for Strata training course. We've got a bunch of other videos on YouTube, and we've got a link to all the grants and rebates for New South Wales Strata schemes. And then finally, um, if you want to scan this QR code, you can join a WhatsApp group with over 300 Strata electrification enthusiasts. And there's even a subgroup there that just talks about the New South Wales SOAR grant. So feel free to post a question in there, and someone that's been through the process and done it in Strata might be able to answer your question. That's the end of the formal part of the presentation, and we can go to Q&A looking at this beautiful solar system on a Drummoyne strata with a harbour bridge in the background.
Thank you, Brent. I've seen that a few of you have put your questions in the chat, so thank you very much. If anyone else has any questions, please pop them in the chat now and we will try and get to them. So I'll start with Lissam's question. Lissam asked, does any or how much of the info relate to homeowners or only stratas?
Everything tonight is related to stratas where the owners corporation is leading the charge to do the solar or the solar and batteries as one big project for everyone. Um, there's uh, but if you're like an individual homeowner, then there's a whole bunch of other incentives, up to $15,000 interest-free loans and things like that that you can go and get from the government to do those upgrades in your individual homes. But everything we've spoken about tonight is in the context of a strata building or an owners corporation, applying to do this as a big project as opposed to an individual townhouse owner or an individual standalone house owner going and doing a project.
Great, thanks, Brent. And Karen asked, do you have any ballpark figures for a 40 lot apartment building, 5 levels?
Mm. Like solar only. Uh,
So I noted that Karen asked this when you were talking about the solar sharing schemes.
yep.
So I'd imagine that.
Mm. So yeah, like a ballpark for solar only without batteries could be $100,000. Before
Great.
that's before you start taking off your New South Wales SOAR rebate, and then maybe you slash 45,000, or maybe a bit less than that, 37,000 off that. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Brent. And Fadil asked, we're also at Breakfast Point, 32 lot over 2 buildings. What was the rough cost of the 21 lots at Breakfast Point?
Right. Off the top of my head, I can't remember that, but I because remember they did the batteries as well, so they're probably adding uh like maybe it's in the range of 130,000 or something like that. But I don't have that off the top of my head. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Brent. And Robin asked, we have 200 apartments in our complex over 5 buildings. Is the 55 apartments limit based on a strata plan or on each building block in a strata plan?
Unfortunately, it's based upon an entire strata scheme's number of lots. So you can't break it down by individual buildings that are under 55 and apply for that. And we know that there are a few people that are in that situation have like lodged an application to the New South Wales government, um, and tried to get on like a wait list that if all the funding doesn't get used up, the $25 million, that maybe the New South Wales government might, open up some scenarios like that. But at the current time, unfortunately, that style of strata is excluded from applying for the New South Wales Soil Grant.
Brent, Fadil asked, are there consultants that can project manage this? It seems like a lot of work for volunteers on strata committees, though clearly worth it.
Yes, there are um, a bunch of project managers that can be engaged. What we've found is most strata schemes um, are hiring consultants maybe to do solar quote evaluation and support up to the point of contract signing with their preferred solar installer. And very few are actually hiring a project manager to project manage the solar installer for the install, because the way the solar industry is set up, typically the person that you um, sign with as the solar installer, they actually are the project manager of a subcontract set of electricians. Um, so you can um, so you can end up with project manager on subcontract electricians. Uh, I the place where we see the project manager getting engaged by the strata is when there's a combination waterproofing replacement project for the entire roof, which is outside the grant program, that needs to be coordinated with the solar installer. And then you're hiring the project manager to be across the roof remediation company and the solar installer, and project managing the communication between the two of them, particularly if you're doing one of these setups where um, the waterproofing company is going to clean the existing roof and then position some new concrete plinths that the solar installer then attaches the racking frames to, and then the waterproofing company comes back and waterproofs around everything, and then the solar installer comes back and slides the panels in and does the electricals. So that's where you most typically find the project manager being hired to manage across two different companies, the waterproofing company and the solar installer.
Great, thanks, Brent. And Ken asked, we are a block of 4 units with only a single roof on the top floor. Do you think individual systems are appropriate or a solar shared type arrangement? With 4 units, what size system could I expect?
So the first question is, do you have three-phase power to the 4 units or not? If you've only got single-phase power to the 4 units, and if you've only got a single-phase common area meter, you'll only have 5 phases, and you need 6 phases minimum to be able to do the solar sharing system. So you're probably looking at 4 individual solar systems.
Ken has said a three-phase.
Oh, they've got 3 phase. Okay, so
Mhm.
then if you've got the 3 phase, then it's probably more of a candidate for the solar sharing system, and uh, if you're doing solar only, maybe it's about a $40,000 solar only job without the batteries, and then you might get a solar rebate of 45% off that.
Great. Thank you, Brent. And Mavis has asked, do you have a list of approved consultants and what is the role of the strata manager and the committee?
Yes. So um, for a list of, well, the best place for a list of consultants is to go to Waverley website. They maintain a list, and Elsie might be able to send that out um, with the email pack. Like Wattblock is one of those uh, companies that's on that Waverley Council list of consultants. Then the second part of the question, sorry, what was the second part? It was
What is the role of the strata manager and
right.
the committee?
So the Strata committee is doing the heavy lifting to get the New South Wales SAW rebate done. I've seen a strata manager try and do it, and it's not as good a result because the passion isn't often there in the strata manager to fill out the stage 2 SAW application and get it 100% right. So the strata committee needs a champion who's prepared to do the hard yards in the stage one application for SOAR is very easy. It's done in 10, 15 minutes. The stage two application is considerable, and you need one or two strata committee members to push through that. And it's a challenge. Don't try and outsource that to your strata manager um, is my recommendation. But the strata manager's role is basically setting up an EGM. So, or if you've got an AGM coming up, you need to pass a sustainability infrastructure motion. So the strata manager will have to arrange one of those EGMs and get everyone in. Well, get a majority of unit entitlements voting in favour of the shared solar system or the individual set of individual solar systems under SOAR. So they've got to set up an EGM and minute that, and you have to provide that evidence into the grants portal, and then they'll have to do the um, uh, contract administration, um, sign the funding deed with the New South Wales government, sign the contract with the solar installer, and after approval by the Strata Committee, make the three payments to the solar installer. So that's the Strata manager's job. There shouldn't be any job for the Strata manager after the project is completed.
Great. Thanks, Brent. That was all of the questions in the chat. If anyone else has any questions, please add them in. If not, I will ask a question that has come from another webinar. Is there any common mistakes or common reasons that people might be unsuccessful with the grant for solar for apartment residents, Brent?
Yeah, we've seen a couple. So uh, we've seen people with a lot of passion um, apply for the grant, but they've got a super heavily shaded rooftop where the trees are basically shading 80% of the rooftop, and you don't have enough usable roof space on like a north, east, or west plane to be able to generate sufficient solar. And we've seen people like that sort of try and expand out a solar system on a non-optimal oriented roof space, like, even trying to get away from the shade, trying to use a southern roof space, which is not like industry standard, and then they've been knocked back because of that. Uh, Not having the home building warranty insurance uh, correctly um, calculated. Like, some people have submitted um, quotes to the New South Wales government that have an estimate of the home building warranty insurance rather than the actual home building warranty insurance amount. And to get that accurately, the solar installer's actually got to put their electrical license into the calculator to get the actual accurate amount. There's another kind of uh, calculator that's easily available, which people have used, where you don't put in the electrical license of that particular solar installer, and then you get a home building warranty insurance amount that's not 100% accurate. So we've seen people rejected on that. We've seen people rejected on trying to connect the commercial lots that are on the ground floor into the solar sharing system. We've seen people rejected on um, oversizing the system because the solar installers didn't do a good job. And basically, they just took the approach of trying to uh, mac- blanket the entire roof space with solar system and end up with a solar system that was just way too large, and then didn't meet the criteria of not feeding more than 30% into the grid. So that's another rejection point if the solar installer doesn't um, kind of tailor the size of the shared solar system to what's required to meet the criteria of not feeding too much solar into the grid. That's another rejection. We've seen um, We've seen an embedded network site be rejected because their embedded network manager wasn't able to provide a letter of assurance to the New South Wales government that all the solar benefits were going to be distributed proportionately on unit entitlement because the embedded network provider's billing system couldn't cater for that scenario for the fair and equitable distribution of the solar to the apartments. So there's a few different things that people get rejected on.
Thanks, Brent. We have another question from Lisa here, which I think can be our final question. So, how do we assure that we get an excellent installer?
Right. So one thing that um, uh, we've got that list of top solar installers for Strata that's in this pack that you'll be able to find. Now, at the bottom of that page, there's a set of reference sites. So when you're doing your research, look at the solar installer, look at the reference sites of the Strata buildings that they've installed on, and use that in your decision making criteria. Then the other items that you need to do are check that the solar installer is NetCC approved. That's the new energy tech. There's a website where you can type in the solar installer and check that they're NetCC approved. Check that they're SAA approved. Check their electrical license that you can look up on New South Wales government website. Check the go to ABN lookup and look for the year of incorporation of the solar installer. And basically, what you want is maybe some longevity there, not someone that just um, uh, hung their shingle up in the last 12 months. So if you go and do those things, which are all those things are listed on that top solar for Strata installers list, if you go through that process, you're minimizing. And the other one that we mentioned earlier, ask them, have you quoted for the New South Wales solar program before? You don't want to be the first SOAR building. You don't want to be going with the solar installer into a SOAR application where they've never quoted a SOAR grant application before. And because in those cases, we've seen um, the solar installer have to revise their quote 5 times to get it into the right format to be acceptable to the New South Wales government. Actually, we've got a new record 8 times requoting to be able to get it in the right format. So that's they're basically the checkpoints to minimize risk. And then the other things that you can do from a due diligence perspective is like um, you know checking on review sites like solarquotes.com.au uh, and looking or product review and look for online reviews of that particular solar installer and see how many stars they're getting.
Great. Thanks, Brent. I think that is all we have time for, unfortunately. I just saw one more question pop through, but I think we'll have to move to the wrap up. So thank you very much, Brent, for this very informative, very insightful webinar. I hope you all learned a lot. I'm sure that you did. I'd also like to quickly highlight that Council runs programs every year to support the community with energy upgrades and energy efficiency. So we have a designated website page, which you can either search for energy efficiency programs on our website, or you can move to the QR code. You can scan that QR code that will bring you to the site. On there, we've got a lot of useful resources. We've got several guides, we've got other webinar recordings, and we'll also be announcing some new resources and programs shortly, so you can keep an eye out for that. Over the coming months and year, we're aiming to continue supporting apartments with Strata energy audits, and this time we'll be taking a targeted approach using information from a solar rooftop audit that Brent actually did for us last year. We'll also be aiming to support residents with vetting and choosing installers as part of a new program. We'll also be sharing some new case studies and hosting some informational pop up events throughout the year in the LGA. So, if you'd like to stay informed, you can subscribe to our newsletter, which is linked on the website. And feel free to contact me if you have any questions about our programs with my email on screen there. So, thank you all very much for joining this evening. And thank you again, Brent. And I think we can leave it there at exactly 7 p.m.
Thanks, Elsie. Thanks, Canada Bay Council.
Thanks all.